Hey, howdy ho. Welcome to No BS. This is going to be mostly a paranormal show, but we do have some exciting things coming here in the next couple of weeks, guys. So, next week is going to be showing you the difference between the Republican and the liberal opinions when it comes to, or rather, plan when it comes to your future. I do encourage you to tune in for that one. We're actually going to show you Kamala Harris's stand on conservative views going into the future on economics and so forth. So, it's going to be really fun because she's a real moron. And we're also going to bring you back into showing you the differences between what she said in the speech and the reality of what's really in the Republican views. In the next couple of weeks, we have a couple of people joining us. And hopefully next month, you're going to have a pre-recorded message from JD Vance. So, because I'm a big supporter here, and actually a couple of news things will be coming up here in a little while because I'm going to help support the campaign here in Ohio for JD. He's a great businessman. He's worked with me many times in the past, and I'm proud that he's running with Donald as the vice president. So we're going to try to get a little bit more of that in here. So this week we're going to talk about the paranormal. We're going to bring in a couple of people. I know we've got a few more people joining us. We're going to be doing more roundtables, not just with this, but with politics and with virtually everything, because I think it's very important that we start discussing these situations, getting them out into the open, stopping the bullshit and the nonsense. And what better way to do it than to do it on this show, because that's what it was designed for. So let's bring in our first guest. We'll let Carl do that. I think we've got a couple more joining us here, hopefully throughout the night. This is Denise and Rod Pridemore. I think all of you here that watch the show know who these guys are. They've been on multiple times, have their own show here and so forth. So how are we doing, guys?
Good. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good.
Staying alive. I'm in the middle of a moving process, so I'm moving virtually everything from my home office into my real office now because we expanded. So it's been a task. You know, you had to put the deposits down and buy the building and yada, yada, yada. So it's been a pain in the ass. And I had to mow down a beautiful garden because it's being moved along with me since I have a quarter-acre of land behind it. I'm going to put a real farm out there to start filming with. But I almost cried because I had to mow down all my vegetable garden turned into a vegetable jungle, so I had tomatoes and all kinds of stuff scattered all over the place. so I'm sure that you're excited to get into a few things. Carl, I know you've got the Angelina joining us here in a little while. Nudge her and tell her to get her ass on. But there's been some crazy stuff going on here in the paranormal lately, hasn't there?
From what I've seen, to be honest, I can't watch all of it. You know, I got to the point to where I just don't want to see all the
drama and stupidity.
Yeah, that's the nutshell version. I don't want to see it on Facebook. I don't want to see it on Instagram. I don't do TikTok, so I'm not going to see it there. Because along with all that, in the paranormal, we're also getting political opinions.
Which won't really belong there in the first place.
They don't belong there, but people want to share their support of whomever they're supporting. And I'm fine with that. But don't try to shove it down my throat.
No, and I'm an avid RNC supporter right now. I'm an avid Republican and conservative. It's not just because I believe in conservative views. I think that the far right has got some problems, but I think the far left has a lot more problems right now. And if we choose wrong this particular time, there's a lot more at stake than just the economy. And we're not talking revolution here. We're talking about a total collapse and fall of the United States of America. So that's why I support where I am. But
we don't disagree.
But I'm not going to push that down anybody's throat because that's not what America is about.
No.
And that's not
what we do know, the conservative, that way works. That's been proven over again. The liberal ideas do not work. They never have. We know that for a fact. So
yeah, because they fail everywhere else in the world. But
exactly.
Well, and it's not just that. I won't get much into it because I know this is a paranormal show this time around. But it's not just that. It's just we just went through 4 years of the weakest presidency, and whether you liked him or not, in the history of the United States of America.
Worst president ever.
And now on top of that, knowing that Russia's went to war and ready to strike, sitting on one border, and China's back sitting on another border, we're going to support perhaps an even weaker individual. And when I say this, I don't want anybody that's female to get mad at me. That's a woman. And I believe there are some women that could be good presidents, but right now, I also know from being in the military for years what Russia and what China is going to see that as. And I'm going to tell you right now, Putin's going to attack.
Oh, they're going to see her as wishy-washy.
Well, they know she's a liberal piece of crap, and they can do whatever they want.
Well, that's it.
And then I was in the military. Carl's been in the military, and this is how it is. I would not respect her at all.
Well, and that's the point.
If I was
other countries have already seen us as
not
weak.
Because she's a woman, it's who she is. It's not got anything to do with anything else.
But in Russia, it does.
Oh, I know.
And in China, it does.
Right.
There would never be a female running Russia or China.
No.
And I'm sorry, that sounds terrible. And I believe we could have a good female president. I think there are women that could do it. So I'm not against that. But right now, it's a dumb ass move. I'm sorry, but it is. Because if you don't have somebody that's a strong military presence that's female, that can stand in front of them that they know is a strong military presence, and right now we don't have one, and you throw somebody like Kamala at the helm, I'm going to tell you right now, Putin's going to attack. It's not a hidden thing. He wants to attack America anyway. And China also does. China's very verbal about it. If you guys ever get a chance to go on the Chinese news, watch it. The guy that runs China is very open to his people all day long. I deal with this in the back end because I talk to people that live there that deal with us and send us products, and they will be open about it. China is very blunt about it. He wants to attack America. He wants to attack our social media. He wants to attack our banks. He wants the ships to attack at our borders. He wants to take America one way or another, and believes he's going to in the next 20 years.
Well, he's killed off quite a few with the fentanyl. That took care of it.
But anyway, let's try to get back into the paranormal a little bit.
Yeah.
Welcome, Nigel. Hopefully you're welcome to join us. I sent a link on Facebook for those of you that don't know. There is, and we can broadcast that link as well over, but there's my Facebook page. Just look up Chris Houston. There's a link on StreamYard where you can feel free to join us. Right now we are talking about paranormal views and situations. And the reality of the paranormal. We're going to be bringing in a bunch of people, hopefully, during this process. If not, oh well, if we do, great. It was kind of a last-minute thing to put together last week, but we're going to continue to do that. I do encourage everybody to jump in. So let's talk about the reality of the paranormal. I think, Denise and Ron, you guys have probably been in it as long as I have. I think I've been in it for almost 32, 33 years. I'm sure you have too. We saw the rise of mainstream media in the paranormal with reality TV. And there's a big difference between the way the paranormal really works and has worked and what most of these people believe. And I call it, again, and they're going to get mad at me, but I call it the Wilson Hawes effect, because we had Zach show up, right? But everybody remembers Sci-Fi's first attempt at a ghost show because they promoted it so much. It was all over every channel, ABC, NBC, so forth. Here, go over to Sci-Fi, watch Ghost Hunters. And that first year of Ghost Hunters, everybody got familiar with the night vision camera and the K2 meter and the flashlight effect and a dozen other things that we all know is basically total bullshit. But it made great entertainment. And now everybody repeats it every day of the week.
Yeah. Our first ghost hunting show that we watched was Paranormal State.
I remember Paranormal State.
Yeah, it really didn't use a lot of equipment. It used feelings.
Had a good cast before it all went kind of hooky.
Yeah, it did. It did. And some really good people came out of that.
Uh-huh.
And some really crap people came out of that, but that's a whole other problem.
That's Hollywood and reality TV. It is what it is.
But yeah, I mean, we really enjoyed that when it was new. You know, once it wasn't new anymore and Ghost Hunters came out, And ghost hunters did mainstream a lot of stuff that ghost hunters, paranormal investigators out there sucked up.
Huh?
They ate it up like it was Sunday dinner, and brought it and shared it with everybody and their brother, going, this is the way you do it. There's no other way. And there are other ways. There are better ways.
And originally that way was done for mainstream media. It's not the way it really worked. In the old days, cameras were put together for interviews and for observation. A camera may actually sit in a person's house for 16 weeks just to see what's going on. Okay, I'm not sure why that popped up. Sorry if you guys heard that. I apologize. That just randomly popped up telling me an alert from a place that I work with that's not supposed to tell me alert right now, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, basically, our jobs were to observe at the beginning. So, and I know I use this as an example because I was an evaluator for the Catholic Church for a little while. So the TV show goes a little ridiculous, but if people have ever watched Evil shows you kind of the way it really happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had evaluators. Evaluators came into the home. Usually you had your psychiatrist, you had a priest, you had somebody that was well endowed in other situations, whether it be science or so forth. And then you had a handful of people like me that let those guys do their thing. And my job was to set up the cameras and ask the questions so that they could be interviewed for when they weren't there, put down observation notes, and then hand it off to other people. So there were a lot of people that worked in separate positions to kind of see if this was even real. And sometimes it was for an exorcism. Sometimes it was just because somebody randomly called and asked for help from somebody, and then it ended up on a desk of this person or this person or this person. And you did it for multiple reasons. I did it for extra money. I'm not going to lie about it. And I was curious about the paranormal, and I had my own life that I was kind of questioning. The psychiatrist that I worked for did it because you had to do volunteer hours somewhere, so he chose to do it with the Catholic Church. The two scientists did it out of curiosity. They really didn't believe in ghosts or demons or God. They didn't believe. They believed in science. You know, this is the way it really was. You could go out and investigate, and you could have a team, but it's not the way they make it out on TV. In fact, very few teams really existed. It was just people you worked with. And we didn't have the gadgets. Yeah, you may have a video camera recording things. Your best friend was usually a tape recorder. And I can remember when it was an actual tape recorder, guys, not a digital recorder.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I remember starting, believe it or not, with loading tapes on reel-to-reels and hitting record.
And you probably got more than they're getting now on digital recorders.
Yeah. Now
Good
some
night,
of it,
Nigel.
some of it you had to register as it was the reel-to-reel because reel-to-reels make noises and they're pretty staticky, and it was a pain in the butt. But it was still one of those things that equipment was basic equipment. It wasn't all this fancy schmancy stuff that most people don't realize you can rig in the process. And some of them were designed to be so sensitive it was easy to rig by turning a cell phone on and off, as an example. Or a piece of audio equipment in another room that can make it trigger, or shaking or moving your foot at the right time. All this little stuff that people don't realize because they were just watching a show and being entertained and going, I believe in ghosts. I want to do that too. It's annoying for people like me because you have what I call the 5 years, the fives. I've been in this for 5 years, repeating mainstream, and I know everything. So now I'm intelligent and I'm an expert, and I may have gotten away with my one documentary or my handful of things on TV because I was in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
And now I know everything. So I'm going to back you in the corner and tell you you're full of crap.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people out there that I have witnessed that went from here to here in a short period of time. and it's all because they got on some TV show and now they're, you
He
know,
goes a mile thick.
yeah, they're top of the line. And how in the hell do you get to be top of the line when all you're spewing are your own theories on stuff?
Well,
There's
and
zero proof to go with those theories. How do you prove it?
It brings us to situations like what people say there. And I always argue this, Chris, just so that you're aware. Everybody says there are no experts in the paranormal. Well, technically you're right, and you're also wrong. Just so everybody's aware, the paranormal has been around for 125 years. No, and being researched. Out of that 125 years, there's over 80 years of actual evidence against a lot of what people think. That proves more things that are solid scientific evidence than false. So here's the deal. If I am in psychology, and I've been in psychology for 45 years, and I can tell you from a psychological standpoint and prove to you that this is a psychological standpoint, then I am a professional that knows my field better than you, because you're not a psychologist. The same thing applies for every field of knowledge across America and the world. You should never argue with those people. You should absorb that, whether you believe it or not, because they are experts. They've been doing it longer than you. Now, that doesn't mean that they understand everything. That means that they can give you the opinion in their area that they know more about. Doesn't mean they can be right or wrong either. This is the beauty of quantum physics. Once you get into quantum physics, you realize that a lot of things are happening around you on a regular basis that can be explained by science, that also can be explained and connected to everything else. And now you're not crazy, like the psychiatrist may say, but your brain is operating in a different field or variable because of quantum physics. I know that's hard to explain. I wish I could, but that takes a lot of math.
Yeah, I mean, without a whiteboard behind you, I was gonna say,
yeah.
But you know what? That'd have been a paranormal thing. Use the chalkboard to see if anybody touches it. But, without the whiteboard telling us, explaining each of the formulas that you have to go through for the quantum physics, we're all screwed, because we may not have the knowledge of what each of those equations mean, what it's telling you.
Well, and that's the thing. And even if we could, the reality is there's over 2,553 different fields and educations that touch base in the word unknown. So how am I supposed to be able to know all 2,000 and some, if not more, fields? The truth is, I'm not. I've been digging into this for 32 years, and there's still shit that comes around every day that somebody tells me, and I'm going, holy crap, I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. That's equals unknown. Yeah. Unknown equals this big question mark that every day there's something more unknown that comes up that we might know something more about then. But
well, and that's the thing. But you end up with a lot of, I'm just going to be honest about it, wackadoos in the paranormal. You end up with a lot of wackadoos. And those wackadoos love to use terms to twist it around, just like the wackadoos in the liberal world. Sorry, guys, but it is what it is. And that's where the word "there are no experts" come from. There are no experts. You can't be an expert in a place that covers 2,589 fields. Well, yeah, you can. You just can't be an expert in all 2,589 fields. You can still be an expert auto mechanic. I mean, I take my car to an auto mechanic because I have no freaking idea how to fix it. So I trust he's an expert. Now, sometimes I run across that idiot that just screwed my car up because he's not an expert. And sometimes I run across the guy that really fixes it right. That's been doing it for years. So you still got to do your research and not take people for their word.
Agreed.
And that's
some experts just aren't very good.
Yeah.
Some are better than others.
Maybe they're experts at screwing shit up. That's a whole different problem.
Exactly. And in the paranormal, you're going to find a lot of people that's going to blow that damn car up.
I know when I was in the Air Force, we had about 40 mechanics in our shop. We were all mechanics, but if they wanted something fixed, there was probably about 5 of us. They said, go fix it.
Because you're the ones that do how to fix it. The rest of us
Right. We knew how to do it.
Yeah, book smart and able to fix it are two different things.
Yeah.
So,
And some of that applies to the paranormal too. When you're evaluating a case in an example, book smarts can only get you so far.
Right.
You have to have physical smarts. So this is why when I actually went out on my own, I never went out as a team because teams cause drama. But I may know somebody that's in construction or electrical engineering or so forth. Now, I'm an audio engineer and a business marketing guy, right? So audio engineering, I know. I don't know electrical engineering from my ass in a hole in the ground. I don't know how to build a building from my ass in a hole in the ground. So if I think something's going on in that, I'm going to bring somebody with me that knows that. Because I'm not going to stand there in front of you and go, yeah, well, it's electrical amplified, blah, 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 yakety schmackety from over here because I'm not going to say all that because I have no freaking idea. Even if I were to bring a K2 meter, a proper meter with me to read the electrical interference, to be frankly honest, outside of what I've read in manuals, I can't tell you whether that's causing a problem or not. I leave that up to the electrical engineer. You know what I'm saying? He can tell you that.
Hey, Chuck, hope you're doing
What's up,
well.
Chuck?
I hope you're recovering.
Crystal.
And who else was in there? Oh, Nigel's already left.
Mom.
Yeah, I saw your mom.
Yep.
So, got lots of good people listening.
Recovering.
Good.
Well, we'll get more. We'll get more. I always get a bunch of people popping in, and this was a short notice thing, so I appreciate people even trying, especially since some of them are broadcasting around the same time I am. That may actually change. I might move from Sunday night. I get so back. I should be out finishing this whole area tonight because I've got a week before the closing, and then I'm going to be moving a lot of shit out. So
we know how that is.
Well, then the guy that I'm renting from here, I don't like to leave anything half-assed. So I have all the paint and all the supplies and everything to make sure that he doesn't have to do anything but bring somebody else in and say, okay, here's the space, take it. But I haven't had a lot of time to do it because I was a landlord for years. I get how people can leave your stuff. If you don't watch it, they'll just, especially if you're renting homes, they'll just trash it. One of the homes I was renting, it took me 6 months just to get it back into place. And they had it awful. So.
I agree, Chuck. That is a good way to go. So, some of the things in the paranormal that really really do tick me off. And I know that you're going to have an opinion on it.
Chuck able to coach this year?
I don't know if Chuck's able to coach this year. I hope so. But one of the things that really irritates me is something we were talking about before the show. Lack of critical thinking. You know, that's my nice way of saying that people are gullible. And how do we help people become less gullible?
You know, I've tried that for years. And unfortunately, once mainstream kicked in, it's almost impossible with some people. For years, I got followers on Facebook by putting up educational posts. That's all I did, was tell people, hey, here's the reality. Here's the education. Here's where you can go. Here's the real science. And I still get people that argue that are extremely intelligent people, but they simply can't register it for some reason, that this is the way it goes. As an example, I just got into an argument with a friend of mine that's very intelligent about dimensions and how people, he strictly says nobody's proven that other dimensions are out there. That's actually a lie. In fact, Michigan University and two young scientists backed by a college professor created a device about the size of my desk that tapped into one of the theoretical dimensions that are out there, pulled dark matter out in a very small amount by surprise, and proved that there were other dimensions, and those other dimensions carried properties different than ours. Nashville, Tennessee picked up this project, and they are now utilizing it, building a bigger one. That's going to be the size of a house, to tap a larger hole into this same dimension to see if they can pull out dark matter and utilize this. So we proved two things right off the bat. Dark matter exists and can't be utilized in this universe at this point because it dissipates as quick as it comes. And then other dimensions exist. It's just not what people think. right? We proved that energy in an opposite form of our matter exists somewhere else. That's all we proved. Now, that could mean nothing. Could mean the only thing there is we tapped into some place that pulled out energy from somewhere else that's the opposite of ours. It could also mean that ghosts exist and all kinds of other things exist, but science is not going to tell you that because we don't know that. All we know is we punched a hole in something and we pulled shit out.
Well, there's also, we may not know exactly what we have, so we're not reacting to it the way that we should. You know, in 50 years, we might exactly know what we have in our hands at that time. But right now, we don't even know what to do with what we got.
Well, and that's the way science works. I mean, that's how we created the atomic bomb. We stumbled across it. We didn't believe it was going to happen.
Surprise, plutonium does this. Surprise, uranium does this.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden we figured out, big bada boom, hey, we can use this. We knew that the Germans were trying to create a hydrogen bomb. We knew that hydrogen bombs existed and were going to blow up. We had no idea about anything else past that. And then by accident, while the project was getting shut down, we blew something up.
and the thing is yes, it did what it was supposed to do, but it also screwed up so much stuff.
And that's the other thing about science. We don't realize the consequences until after we do it. By creating that bomb, we became the destroyer of worlds. We became
a superpower.
And we also became the most evil thing in existence, which is why countries hate us now. They hate us, number one, because they want everything we did to fight for our freedom. And number two, because we were the first person that really became the annihilator, that factually became the annihilator. We created something and launched it on people that literally should have never been done in the first place. Now, we became a superpower from it that people feared, but it's still a terrible way to do that. We literally, in a moment, assassinated thousands and thousands of people without thought.
But we also saved, we probably saved lots more lives.
We probably saved a lot of people. And in our defense, we were attacked first. We lost hundreds of people in Pearl Harbor. And it pissed us off. And now we started to realize with the Germans trying to create bombs and with Pearl Harbor and all this other shit, we need to be ahead of the game.
But
and
also at that time, Japan said they were fighting until there was no one left.
Yeah.
They're fighting till the end. That's what they vowed to do.
And it's always been that way in war. War's not pretty, no matter what we do.
Well, their government at the time, I actually think they would have done that.
Yeah.
But when we dropped the second one, we said, we got a lot of more for you. Luckily, they believed it because we had no more for them.
Well,
that was it.
Russia was the same way when we ended up in the Cold War affairs. Russia kept saying, we're going to bomb you with nukes. We got more nukes. We got more nukes. We believed it. Turns out they didn't even have a damn nuke.
Thank God. I mean, thank God. Going back to the paranormal, though, of this, do you believe that where these bombs were dropped, that there's paranormal activity there, or is it just leftover radiation that people are experiencing?
Radioactivity is a unique thing, just like energy is a unique thing. So going back to physics alone, I do believe that physics and radioactivity can affect an area, causing a residual effect that literally places time, space, and relativity all in the same area at the same moment. So if a nuclear bomb, or let's use Chernobyl as an example. A nuclear facility blows up, and for 75 years, you can't even get to the center of it. Now, when people get close to the center, they do say that they hear things, see things, and feel things that they should not. Well, the reality is you do, because that center of that area caused a nuclear reaction that theoretically adjusted all mass.
You guys see anybody else in the green in there?
Nope.
Cat's in there somewhere, and I can't.
I don't see her.
I can't see her.
I'd say send her a link. See if she can get in. So I was say I don't see anybody.
No.
But
Yeah, I don't see anybody here either. So
I sent her the link, so I don't know where she's at.
it's another
I
dimension.
Disappeared.
I kept hearing somebody talk, and they're talking to me down here, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Well, maybe
So,
you need to go
I
out and
don't
come
know.
back in. I don't see anything.
We'll find out.
So,
Tell her to get in our dimension.
yes.
well, that I mean, when you're talking about things like Chernobyl, I believe yes that echoes of that situation. I mean, let's face it, not everybody got out of that. People died there.
Oh,
A massive
yeah.
radioactive effect happened. So it is very plausible that even when we drop even Hiroshima's, the same ground zero is going to be active. It's just the way it is. But then again, I also believe that most of those fairy tales from Japan and China about ghosts and so forth are theoretically real.
And as Crystal says, she says magnetic fields and radiation can cause positives for the paranormal too. Yeah, I believe it can cause positives as well as negatives.
Well, and they can also cause psychological effects that people need to understand too. The closer you get to any radioactive field, the more it screws with your brain.
Is it possible that one of the things is, that this happened in this place? Could it just be their minds going with whatever they hear is paranormal, kind of like when you're hunting Bigfoot and every noise you hear is Bigfoot, not a deer?
And it is sometimes, especially in the paranormal. Anybody that's ever been to a live area where we've done conventions and people have all gotten together and so forth in a existing area, we know that I went to Post Town and watched things happen, and I'm going, I know this is not a ghost, but this is so hilarious because everybody else around me believes 100% this is a ghost, to the point where they're showing you activity that's going on, and you can only smile a little bit and go, yeah, this is not really a ghost. But yeah, your mind can do some crazy things, and if you let it believe that it exists, it does exist. Ouija boards are a prime example of that. Guys, Ouija boards don't do shit. They're words on a board, okay? The ideometer effect is the only thing it does, and that is because of the positioning of the words. It screws with the brain, and then the brain doesn't understand it. That's why they tell you turn the board upside down and see if you still go to yes, and things along those lines. But if you believe that board is going to do something, it will do something, and if you believe it's going to bring evil around, then you're going to see evil. Just the way it is.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me in any way, because I know that there was an experiment done in Kansas City by David Glidden.
Oh, yeah.
He took people to a reported paranormal location. Nobody knew about it, but they told him that the location was haunted. Okay. Took them to another location and they told them it wasn't haunted, that there's never been any paranormal activity. And in part of it, there was, the site that they said had paranormal activity. People were reporting paranormal activity, even though technically it's not haunted. There was no reports of real paranormal activity at all. And only a couple people said, hey, I didn't get nothing. I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. I don't think it's haunted. And then another one, the one that was paranormal, had activity and everything, but they said it didn't. The same people who said that they didn't get any activity at the other one said that they got activity at this one.
It's because of Cocaine Bear.
Oh, okay. And so, but on the other hand, the ones that, the ones who truly believed what they were being told, that it wasn't haunted, didn't see a damn thing.
Ohio State University, I was a part of 1,500 people that did this study. Ohio State University, Michigan University, and Harvard University did a study. This is almost 9 years ago now, maybe longer. It could be about 10. And through this process, we actually did over 3,000 Ouija board sessions. I participated in 2,100 personally by recording them, sitting through them, observing them, and so forth. And what we did, we took group studies. So we took one group and we put them in a room for 3 or 4 hours, and we wouldn't turn the air conditioning on. And we'd put on the television something that was about exorcisms and ghosts and evil stuff. We'd take the other group and we'd put them in there for 4 or 5 hours before we started the Ouija board sessions. And we put them in an air-conditioned room, give them plenty of food and relax, and we'd put a comedy on. Had nothing to do with the paranormal. And we take one and, separate them, right? And we found out through this process that those that were in the rooms that the exorcism was in believed that the Ouija boards were evil and evil things were showing up. The people that were in front of the Ouija boards that went to the comedy and had the enlightened effect, something always good happened, good and funny. If we put them in a neutral room where all you saw was something neutral and you were talking to somebody about not believing in Ouija boards at all, nothing at all happened. And then you had a small percentage of them that were still fascinated with the ideometer effect and believed that something was going on, but because they didn't believe in Ouija boards, it wasn't a ghost, or because they believed in Ouija boards, it was a ghost, and so forth. But we found out that most of the time, it was all in your brain. Mm-hmm. You saw it happen, and you created the environment based off of what you had during that particular period in time for a prolonged period in time. If you were frustrated for 5 hours and sweating your ass off and seeing terrible things on the TV, something terrible happened. And if you were happy, something good happened. And if you were neutral, nothing happened at all, which tells you a lot about Ouija boards.
Well, and Bill is right. He goes, not all paranormal will act the same for everyone. I agree with that. But where I'm going to is suggestion. People can suggest that some place is haunted, give them a story, and somebody's going to believe it hook, line, and sinker.
We talked about that earlier before we went on the air about television. Okay, guys, everybody always asks me, what do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? I give them all the same answer. Well, they're great entertainers. Because once you get into this world to a certain effect, you are taught to entertain. And if you're really good at it, you entertain the room. Now, I'm not going to lie. I could entertain all of you. I can put you in a room that I know is not haunted. And by the end of me leaving that room, you will believe it is haunted. I will be able to place the idealisms in your head. I will be able to use the proper words because I've studied mentalism. And I will be able to convince you that a ghost is there. Most of these people that have been on TV can do the same thing, or used to be able to.
The thing is, Chris, if I'm ever in a room with you, I am not going to believe a word that you say.
But I encourage that. But I encourage that. Now, there are times where if I go into a room, I've had some entertainers that refuse to film with me ever again, because there are times if something very evil is in that room, it will show itself to me. But then the whole atmosphere will change because you'll see it in my face too. And then I'll step back and tell you. But I encourage people, the moment they see me operating at a place, the first thing I say is, don't believe what you're seeing from me. Believe what you're seeing from you.
Yeah.
Because if you follow the norm in any convention or anything, you're going to believe a ghost is there. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times a ghost is not there. But there are times when it shows up. Hey, Cat's sort of here.
It's the ghost of Cat.
Yeah, that's why if we're going to a place for the first time, we don't do any research at all before. We won't have any preconceived notions about anything. We just go in empty.
And the thing is, Bill's correct to a certain point. It doesn't act the same for everybody, but that's because our brain doesn't act the same, right?
Right.
but there are commonalities in each situation when you're dealing with paranormal experiences and paranormal situations. And those commonalities should act the same. They should be the same. And if you've been in the paranormal long enough, you know what those commonalities are. You know what some commonalities are that will prove there's no paranormal there. And you know what some commonalities are that should prove that something really is there, when to back off, when not to back off, what it could be, what it is, things along those lines, especially if you're really dealing with what people call very rarely a demonic presence or an evil presence. Anybody that's really dealt with that, I mean, really physically dealt with that, not the bullshit you see on TV, you'll know what it is. And you'll say, okay, guys, it's time to we need to back the fuck off. Excuse my term. I don't know if Carl.
Yeah, she's down there.
Let's see if we can.
She's here. Hey, here she is.
Can we hear you,
Hi.
Kat?
I can
Yes.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. I
Welcome
can
to
hear
the
you
show,
too.
Kat. I haven't talked to you in at least 6 years.
Since God was a child, yeah.
Kat Hobson, guys, just so you guys were aware, was my first multi-broadcast on FM radio. She was she was the second person I interviewed when I first got on both podcasting with BBS and being broadcast on FM AM radio together.
It's been a little while.
It's been a long time.
So thank you for me being here.
I appreciate you showing up. It was short notice for everybody, so anybody that shows up is an
I was
awesome.
traveling, so I was out of town over in Atlanta and zooming to get home, and here I am.
Well, I appreciate you popping in. I know you're busy, and I know you got a show of your own here. in a little
Never too busy. Thank you.
while. We were just talking about the odds and ends of the paranormal, what can be real, what can't be real, years of experience, and the people that also claim they have years of experience when we all know that they have like 4 or 5 years of experience.
Or a week or two.
Or a week or two, or so forth, and it
Yeah.
becomes annoying watching those people because you hear them comment, and they've been on TV maybe once or twice, or they did their 5 minutes of fame, or whatever made them think they know, and you're sitting there shaking your head, going, "God, I wish I could say something. I really do, but if I say something, I become the bad guy, and I don't want to become the bad guy, but I really want to become that bad guy."
Well, sometimes when we don't say something, though, I mean, there are different ways of saying something.
There is.
Denise, she had this happen a lot, is that, you can just kind of say, well, I'm just not getting that here. And I'm usually pretty, I recognize energy. So maybe we could just try something different. And that way I'm not really calling somebody out and being that person, but I'm also, especially if you're in a private investigation in a home or something of that, because some people will leave the homeowners terrified for days, for life.
Yeah.
I mean, and you cannot, sometimes you have to call it out.
Or they lead them down the wrong path. Totally. I had that
Either
happen
or.
just about 4 months ago. We were in a home this lady believed was extremely haunted. Ironically, one of my friends did hang himself in the garage in the back. She had mentioned what he looked like, and I said, okay, that's a unique story. We'll get back to that. So I observed the whole night, didn't really see anything. I did see him respond once in his old bedroom, which, okay, that makes sense. But it turns out that this lady her daughter had died, and she had moved away from that home, and she was afraid that her daughter wasn't going to follow her because something evil was in the presence and blah, 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 blah. And this lady that called herself a psychic medium had her way off into Timbuktu. And I had to reel that back in and say, okay, so here's what's going on. Don't be so afraid if you want to talk to your daughter. You've only got one thing out here that was hers. Maybe she's not coming in because she just doesn't feel like it's her home.
Not welcome.
And she doesn't feel welcome. So bring her stuff in. Let her know it's going to be okay. This guy that's haunting this house, I know him, and he's not a problem. You saw him because it's probably residual activity, or he's still hanging out because of a situation that's already been resolved. But he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to cause any problems, and he's not going to scare anybody away. You need closure, or you need to accept this. And the best way to do that, if you want your daughter to show back up, is to just tell her it's okay to come in. Open that door, put more of her stuff out, and feel comfortable with the fact that you still have her in your life, even if it's this way. And I think maybe you'll get some closure. Because the worst thing you can do is tell people, oh, nope, it's haunted and there's an evil person and blah, 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 especially if there's not something that's really evil there in the first place, or you can't see it, or it's not attacked you and everybody else.
Sometimes they're just freaking mad.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like one of the things that always pisses me off, and Alex Matsuo wrote about it in her book, was that some of the paranormal teams will go into a private residence, tell people that it's a demon,
Oh, yeah.
and then leave them to their own, leave them there in that presence, and they may not ever come back, and so they call somebody else to come in, and that person goes in there being told by the homeowner that there's a demon there because another paranormal team that it said that, and then they have to spend their entire time undoing everything that the other team did to prove to them that there was never a demonic presence there.
Yeah.
That's hard to do after that.
Yeah, it is.
You wind up having to be a psychologist because this person has demon in their head because somebody that's trustworthy said that, especially if it's a parasub. Okay. That's even worse because those people have cred in other people's minds. And most of them are good, but the few who are not trash it. And
the real funny
somebody.
thing is these people that scream demon, it's kind of funny because they've never really ran across something purely evil. If they
Some
have,
of them have, and they're afraid that everything is. And I think we know a lot of people who may have had that experience too.
I've ran into a lot more that really haven't.
Yeah.
I've ran into a few that have, but a lot of times if they have and they really have experienced it, I've watched them back off more than anything else. So if they walk into a home and they get scared, then they just walk away. Now, unfortunately, they also state the wrong things when they're walking away. But I think it's a twofold. I think you're right there, Kat. Sometimes some people have experienced something they believe is evil, and it scared them so much when they go into a home that they scare everybody else. But I run into a lot of people that simply, they don't understand what that is. Yeah. I'm the first person that runs straight into the claims. I'm not going to lie about that. I've always been the person that says, screw that, I'll find out. Yes. But I got to tell you, there's been a handful of times where, and I never scare somebody, that I have dealt with something that's extremely evil and it scared the shit out of me. So if I don't know what this is, I don't deal with it.
Well, and you don't need to be putting verbiage out there if you don't know what it is either. And that's what you're talking about, I think.
Yep.
Because just that one word will get a house on the market so bad with no disclosure that this might be what's going on there. Yeah. Right. And it's horrid. It's horrid for the homeowner because, they're going to take half the price of what they could possibly get for their home.
Well,
just
and that's
it.
That's something to bring up because that's something that is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's something I won't bring into a situation that is going on right now. But that is something that I've seen a lot of times on haunted locations, that you will buy a house and all you have to do is use that word haunted, evil, or demon, and it sells. And if you can get it on
another
TV,
side of that coin,
if you can get it on TV, it sells big time, whether it's haunted or not. And I think that's a crock of crap. I really do. I think that should not be that way because it gives a false impression to mainstream.
Well, it gives a false impression to a lot of scenarios because if I'm not mistaken, there's a fight going on now over a haunted house.
There is over a claimed haunted house.
So yes, but the claims in that house have gone on for decades, and not just by the previous owners. So one of the things that
the original, I should justify this a little bit. The claims of the original house have been going on for decades.
Yes,
not that house.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. But the scenario remains the same.
Yeah, the scenario remains the same.
Yes.
And though I won't get into extreme details on that house because it is what it is.
It is.
there are ways to handle situations, right? Even if
Very,
the claim's been
very
there for
much
years,
better ways.
yeah, there's the right way and the wrong way to handle things. And marketing is marketing and business is business. You're always
Yeah.
going to have somebody that's going to take advantage of it, period.
True.
After that, the way you represent yourself online and off is very important, and how you handle it. And I think that whole situation is just being handled wrong.
Well, that situation is being handled in ways that are almost criminal. I mean, there's verbiage going back and forth. There's, people are having to investigate barefoot just to maintain any level of credibility in a
Yeah.
home that you probably don't want to be barefoot in. I mean, there's so much BS affiliated with so many scenarios in the paranormal that if you don't have a level of discretion and discernment going in, Denise is beautifully gifted, and she probably saves Ron's neck several times. I'm teasing you,
He
Ron.
probably
Ron-
doesn't even know it.
Ron
I
said
know, right?
something earlier that I agree with. A lot of times when I go to haunted places, the first thing is I don't go to major places anymore, even though I love them, except for the Ohio State Reformatory, because I'm so close and I love the place.
I
And
love
that's
that
because
place
it's history
too.
and it's fun. I don't
And it
like
is
to know anything about the place when I go in. I don't want to know anything about the place.
Sometimes that's difficult, but it is, I think, I agree, the best way to do that. Because if you go in preconceived, you're going to potentially miss something
Mhm.
that nobody's talking about.
That's why
And
it's so
you're just
beautiful to
sitting there
do
waiting.
locations that nobody knows about. Because
Yeah.
if you go to more common locations, it's hard to not know.
Yeah.
And though I would love to go to some of these locations and people go, well, why haven't you went here? Well, that's because it's been all over TV and everybody talks about it.
And everybody knows what's supposed to be there.
Everybody knows what's supposed to be there. The only one that I do on a regular basis is Octagon Hall. And
I love
that's
Octagon
because,
Hall.
I have never from day one. And when I first went there, I didn't know anything about it. But from day
too.
one, every time I go there, I get activity. And it's usually before the cameras start, which frustrates the hell out of me.
That's how it always is.
Yeah.
I know,
I
right?
have to tell
It's
you,
so annoying.
even when we go to major locations, I still don't know what they say are the key hauntings in a place. And it's because I choose not to keep it in my head. I have the Kelly Bundy effect. There's only so much stuff that can fit in there. And I only want to keep the stuff that I need. Everything else goes.
Well,
Like,
you've got
I
a
can
very,
watch.
but even your job affects that because when you're data driven, you only have so much space. I'm so much space because I'm old. So I've got a lot already in there.
Data management, marketing management, even PR management. When you're dealing with so much coming into the brain, you just have to kind of eventually just cycle out everything except for what you're doing.
Look what you need.
Like we can watch, and I can watch every word of a paranormal show and not retain any of it.
Yeah.
Other than something that they did that pissed me off. That's it.
I stopped watching them a long time ago because I just can't watch them. I don't even watch the handful of things that I have been on and never know when I'm on. I don't even know the name of some of the shows that they put me on, to be frankly honest with you.
There's only one left.
I just don't pay attention to any of it.
That's unwatchable.
But yeah, it's just gotten to the point to where
Last 5-6 years.
basically it's taken down
Demon,
notes.
demon.
Location.
Yeah.
Location, and that's it now. You know,
the shows have gotten so ridiculous that unless it's on the History Channel and you can laugh about it a little bit because it's ancient alien theorists say, or something like that. Which,
I love my Robert.
Well, and some of what they talk about is fascinating. It really is.
It
Whether
is.
it's real or not, it makes you think.
Some of it.
But
and some of it just makes you feel like they think you're stupid.
Yeah.
But
at least some of it makes you think.
Full disclosure, I've been covering Alien Con since the first one. So it's up to COVID. But anyway, so it's really just it's unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. Okay, that's not just air quotes or anything. It's really unbelievable. Some of the things that they expect you to buy, to believe. But
Some of
other
that is
stuff that if you just do a little reading, that's actual and factual. And it's been that way for hundreds of years. And people are acting like, oh, well, we just did not know.
some of
We
that
knew
is the
you did.
misinformation campaigns that have came in. I mean, participating in misinformation with the Department of Defense for years. I think I've talked to you about that, Kat,
Yeah,
before.
we have.
It's easy to when you're behind the scenes to understand that and this is why I have such a problem with Bob Lazar as an example, because it's very easy to be that officer or that official in the CIA, DOD, and so forth, and all you got to do is feed a little, just a handful of real information to a mental case.
Yep.
And they will take that and run in these conventions, and they will say things that make them superstars. And if you keep
Yes.
promoting it with them, which the government has done, I can tell you this, you keep you feed the money in and you keep promoting them with that and let them get that book going, then all of a sudden there's this false image,
Yep.
especially in the US UFO universe, that's not
you know,
true.
That's why I don't, how to phrase this and not offend anybody I might want to talk to later. But the whole thing that I have discovered is there's a group out of Huntsville, Alabama, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, and they're the science, and they are just the science. They people forget sometimes because Travis Taylor sounds like me, okay? But he was disinformation on Skinwalker when he was still a government employee when he came. He got really mad at me because I asked him once if he was disclosure or disinformation. And he turned all the red that an Irishman can turn, and we all know what that looks like, right? And then when I apologized for putting him on the spot in front of a crowd, but pointed out that he still hadn't answered me a few years later, he turned that same color. And I was just like, you didn't answer me. So he got mad all over again. He'll never talk to me. He'll never come on my show. So I'm not going to lose that much sleep about that. But I mean,
I think
making
he
him
answered
angry.
you by his face turning red.
Yeah.
Well,
But he thought that I was asking him, he thought I was accusing him of lying and betraying his country. But because what he said to me was, I will never violate my oath to protect my country.
Now, see, he told
But
you the truth.
which way does that go?
He told you the truth. This is
Yeah.
the same thing that we're all taught to say. The answer is yes. He told you yes. You just didn't hear yes.
I did hear yes,
our-
but it
our-
was so funny
Our
because
disclosures in misinformation is to state exactly what he said.
yes,
I will never betray the United States of America, my government, or my country. We're actually told to say that.
and he did. And anybody that knows, I mean, no, I can't tell you that this is real because, it's just really so. I think it's hard to be somebody who decides on retirement to go public with that, or even if they're not really
Especially
retired.
when they're in a certain position. I mean, I am
Yeah.
small, okay? I'm that email guy that's so small under the edge that I know all of this stuff, but I'm not, that guy that can stand there on 1,000 shows and tell you, oh, yes, this, and this. I can tell you some things about COVID
Well, you
if you
could,
ever talk to me.
but
But if I told you the things I knew about COVID-19, I would probably get arrested.
well,
It's not
they've
like
just
we don't
disappeared
know.
you. I know, right? It's not going to be a shock. Just saying it might
know.
cause you a shock, but I don't.
The first time I went out about it, it caused me a shock. It caused me 2 black trucks outside my house a shock as the radio show got shut down. And I got a phone call that startled my whole family saying, Mr. Houston, step outside the door. You're not allowed to talk about that.
Get out.
No joke
didn't
there.
tell me that.
It really happened. All because of
And I'd
COVID-19
invite 'em in.
contracts.
Yeah, I would have invited him in.
Well,
Come
they
on,
followed.
bud.
Come on
They
in,
followed-
boys.
They
I got
followed
something
and
for
stuck
you.
around for about another week and a half. Believe it or not, I actually bought 2 of them pizza and coffee
Yeah,
and had
I
it
believe
delivered
that
to
of
their
you.
truck because they stuck around for no reason. But
They thought they had one.
What I do.
But it did startle me. I
you're
did
there.
not believe.
Breaking and entering.
You always hear these stories, right? You always hear these stories, especially when you're in the paranormal and the UFO industry and all this stuff about the scary little men in black or the FBI following you or so forth. You always hear these stories, but you don't believe them. And then here I was in a job in Ohio in the center of COVID-19, and I knew information that other people never knew. And then I finally got frustrated and decided to share it
There
and
you
tell the
go.
public the truth. And all of a sudden, the show got shut down. I get a phone call and they're right outside my house. I'm like, holy shit, this really is real.
We figured it out through common sense. So
Not to mention
What you
at
gonna
that
find?
time, Chris, if you recall, I was so pissed off
everything,
that everything we talked about always seemed to go back
we're
to
right on
COVID.
every damn thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything.
But you know, they are
And
saying
hearing the opposite.
saying the
Yeah.
cat's lagging. So
I
we
try to
need
do my
play-
kung fu moves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a kung fu
We,
movie.
we
There
need
you
to
go.
play kung fu fighting. So
We'll put them up.
But-
We'll play.
it's probably the aliens. Travis Taylor's probably trying to shut her up.
Ooh.
But
Nah, he knows.
But
It's the
at some
government.
point, Kat, you need to tell me what you asked him so that when I'm there, I can ask him and see if we get the same response.
It was simple. I just said,
gonna
yeah,
be-
we were
where's he
standing
gonna be?
in the middle. He was finishing his lecture, which is brilliant. Oh my gosh, the propulsion system lecture was great. But 5 physicists that I really liked and admired were all there talking about this stuff. I love that, right? But I just said, do you still get a check from the government? And he looked at me and he was like, I do. I said, so you're pulling a check from the production company too, right? And he knew. He said, I do. I said, so, well, then are you disinformation or are you disclosure? We were done.
Oh yeah.
And that was before he said, before he came out as having still been part of ATIP at that point.
Those words, by the way, disinformation and disclosure, are not too far away from each other when you're dealing
No, they're
with it.
not.
Especially in the UFO world, because there are things that we're never going to get information on. And even the people that are knee deep into these places, I know some engineers that deal with rocket science that are, they've been in and out of Area 51 and a dozen other places, and you ask them questions and they'll laugh at you and they'll say, even if I could tell you what I know, I'm still not going to get the truth.
That happens.
Because
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It-
they don't want to give it to us, and that's just part of it.
Do you
And that
think
does
that could
travel
be
into-
part of national security?
Some of it, I was about to touch base, that does travel into other areas of the paranormal. Dimensional travel being one of them.
Yes.
Wormholes, black holes, all kinds of things like that. Because we have done things in the past that, how would you politely put that? We're idiots. That's the easiest way to put
A
it.
question about that, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
because I think probably all of us have researched it and tried to get definitive answers. The 20+1 program, is that a real thing, do you think? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I
It's
would
like
have-
like the Space Force almost kind of a thing, but it's a program where you go, and I know 2 people that I've spoken with, not on the show, okay, because they're not comfortable with that. Although they speak at conferences, so I'm not buying that either. But that there's a 20+1 program, which is you become part of a unit, basically working with ETs, Space
I
Force,
know what you're
whatever.
talking about.
All
I
right,
know what you're
and you come back a day before you go because time travel
Um,
is real.
I know what you're talking about. I also don't know it under 20+1.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I know 2 of them. So
do I
It was-
believe in that project?
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I don't believe in that project. Now, I do believe and have had some connection to speaking to a handful of people that will tell you there is a quantum travel project.
Mhm.
And that project has proven to their belief that aliens exist.
Yes.
And that also has proven that we can observe time, both
Yes.
past, present, and future, and have done so.
Yes.
But it's not called the 20+1 project. So my guess is the word 20+1 is another handful of misinformation to
Well, I
lead
think
you
the
off of
20+1,
actuality.
it's like with the nomenclature, right? Changing UFO to UAP. When 20 years from now, a generation is doing research, they're going to be looking for UAP. Unless they're good, they won't find UFO. So,
Chris, just so that you're aware, time travel backwards, there's no way the human body can do this, okay? Physically speaking and quantum physics speaking, you're not going to be able to take the human body and travel backwards. That does not mean you cannot tap into quantum fields to see what has already happened.
yes.
That's the difference. And the United States of America has done that.
Yes.
I cannot tell you how I know, but I do know. The United States of America has done that.
I have missed you, Chris. You're like I am. Just couch it right, and everything's good.
So that's the things that mainstream has manipulated all this stuff so much that it's
Yes.
really hard to find the truth. Be it paranormal as ghosts, or be it the UFOs, or even Bigfoot, which I firmly still don't believe in, by the way, guys. I just don't believe in Bigfoot. I'm still looking for him. I'm going out
Well,
with
he is
somebody.
the king of hide and seek.
I have seen some unusual things being by myself in middle of a woods with nobody around, just like any hunter probably has.
Yeah.
But I have yet to witness Bigfoot. But nonetheless, the mainstream has taken a hold of all of this stuff and made it something that's a lot bigger and more absurd than it really is, because it sells that way.
Well, also, it's a great way to, ooh, look, pay no attention to the man behind the counter, right? it is disinformation, but it is well placed and controlled disinformation, so that when there is something tremendous happening, we are distracted, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
And it's a dangerous distraction in a lot of cases right now.
Oh, right now especially,
Yeah.
and not more because of aliens and so forth, but
No,
because
it's not.
the military, which used to use this, has now adapted it to politics
Yes.
massively. So the same misinformation campaigns that started with the United States Navy
Yeah.
is now in our political government, and is being used not just by us, but by people overseas.
Oh yeah.
Very effectively.
Very
in both
effective.
cases.
Yeah. So now we're concentrating clear over here, and I just pointed that out and pissed off a bunch of people about a transgender Olympic situation. We're concentrating clear over here, and nobody paid attention to what just happened here.
Nope.
And here, and here, and here, and here the same week.
That's true. It's always look over here. And like Kat said, don't look at the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
Look at what's right in front of your face that we're making you look at. And
some of that is not pretty.
No. And a lot of it is call out this person for doing exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
I'm actually going to address this a little bit too. This is actually inaccurate as well, just so that you're aware, Chris. Though it has also been tried. We know we can't travel backwards in time no more than we can travel forwards in time because of the physical mass of our being itself, just so that you're aware. So if we were to try to travel forward in time, the problem is time catches up with the body itself. So our physical mass just simply can't do it, quantum physically speaking, at this point. We would have to have something that pulls us out of that time and space and holds us into a theoretical bubble where that bubble travels. That's why Star Trek is so important. Yep, that's why.
I don't know, man. I saw it in Star Trek, so
I know.
That's why.
Well, but see, that's because they had already developed the technology when I was 6.
in the 60s.
Well, the thing is I saw it in Spaceballs.
That's right.
And I just
Well, it has to
know
be real.
Work out
And that
too
was a
well.
by God RV where you could be comfortable and have
Exactly.
real food.
Driven by barf. It's got to be real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as real as Bigfoot. And, and when they do put your particles back together, it is very possible you'll be looking at your own ass.
Pretty much.
It's a great theory to have a quantum bubble and be able to use the quantum bubble to travel instantaneously from one point A to point B. But the fact is, that's all just, as Frank would put it, and Frank is right here, that is all just theory. It has yet to be proven. The math adds up to say it can happen, but until we build that quantum bubble, it's still not possible.
So Frank is there.
Frank and I, Frank, by the way, guys, Frank, if you haven't, I always forget Frank's last name, but Frank, if you haven't met him before, is a great guy. He's highly religious. He has his own opinions on things, which makes him and I fun to be around because his opinions sometimes differ from my opinions. And he's a very blunt, funny guy, and I'm a very blunt, funny guy.
You
True
talking
that.
about FJB?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank has a very particular theory on time travel and dimensions.
Oh, I know he does.
And I disagree with a lot of what he says. But
Do you
I
believe
also
in
agree with some
dimensions?
things. Do I believe in dimensions? Yes, but I
Do you
believe
believe
in
in interaction between them?
no. At this point, I
Charlie
don't.
Waffles.
You believe in Charlie Waffles?
Well, because scientifically speaking, we have proved that multiple dimensions exist past our belief of, the basic dimensions going into quantum theory. So now we know dark matter exists. We know other dimensions exist, but we have not proven communication in those areas. We've only proven that energy exists from point A to point B from one dimension to another. And that energy is different than the energy here when it comes to mass and quantity. So I don't believe that we can interact with other dimensions yet.
Do you
Could
not
we?
think that perhaps somebody in another dimension has developed that technique and is able to come to this dimension and interact
Possibly.
with us based on their
Po-
knowledge?
Possibly. But again, I believe in what I see, and I have yet to have seen that.
So
Because-
you don't believe anything that you haven't seen?
I don't believe in anything that I haven't witnessed
Okay.
myself or seen. Now, I have seen and witnessed things that I have no freaking idea how it happened.
I know you have. But what is the most unusual thing when you go into that category? Because I know
When I
you've
go into
had
that category,
you've had so many different exposures.
I
Ideas.
do the same thing at every haunted location. When somebody says don't go there by yourself, I go straight there.
Well, yes, but I mean, what is the most unusual
so-
experience that you've had that took you by surprise in that manner?
This is what took me by surprise because for years I call them the little boogers.
Yeah.
But for years, I do the same thing. I come in and I say, I know, you may know who I am, but I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're capable of, and you damn sure don't know what I'm capable of. So let's just get to the bottom of this right now. If you exist the way they tell you, show me.
Okay.
I do it every time. And I did this at the Bel Air house. Now everybody says all this stuff is going on and don't go up into the attic. So the first thing I do is go up with my camera guy into the attic. The camera guy's concentrating on me, obviously, but their cameras are concentrating on the ceiling. And they've got some crazy activity going on downstairs. I have nothing going on upstairs. I'm walking around saying the same thing, going, well, I don't believe you're here. If you are, you should be a little bit more curious. And then all of a sudden, they pull back video and they say, Chris, while you were up there, check this out. And there are these little holes that are just little round black holes with these little faces that are weird looking faces and hands, like they're pulling it open, looking right at me up in the ceiling.
Cool beans.
And I've always called them the little critters because they're mischievous little bastards, right?
Right.
You can go in. Speaking of my mischievous little bastard, he just came in. Hi, Carl.
We all need a
Yeah, I
car.
heard mine earlier, so yeah, there you go.
But they're like the little imps you hear about, right? They're there. They cause little pranks. They might grab things, move them around while you're there. They're curious. They pop in, they pop out. But I've never physically seen one until that day.
Okay.
And that made me question a little bit on whether you can create your own environment that maybe these things can come through. And maybe everything that I physically believe in science is not exactly entirely true, because these things were pulling up little holes and popping in.
That's a pretty big admission for you, Chris. Well, I'm not being facetious, and I'm sorry that I turned it around to be interviewing you. I didn't really mean to do that. It's just what we
you're
do.
fine.
But I was just curious because you were so adamant when you were saying that I know you, and I know that you've had some interaction.
Mathematically speaking, if dimensions exist, dimensions are explained just like black holes. That means that if a black hole exists, then a black hole is readable because of the energy it produces, right? That means that if a home that claims there is a portal that opens and closes on a regular basis and demons come in and out of, it's a doorway, which means I should be able to bring equipment in, register the radioactivity of the black hole, and understand that this is a hole that comes in and out. It also means I should be able to go through that hole.
Ostensibly, yeah.
So that's why I don't believe that those exist. But
would you want to?
Oh yeah, I'd dive straight through it. Again, that sounds crazy, but my curiosity would get the best of me.
It would.
And that may be a bad thing. I might dive through and go, "Oh shit, I should have never done this."
What was I thinking? Yes.
Yeah. But that's what it is. So to see that and realize that those little holes are there, it made my mind expand further and go, okay, maybe I'm on the right path and the wrong path at the same time, which also made me back up and believe that start checking into quantum physics and physical matter and the brain more. So what if our brain can actually tap into these things by the way we do things? Were they coming through because I'm the one that created the hole?
Why would intent not do that?
Well, intent can do that.
I know. So the answer would be yes. That's a possibility. But
So
someone else on the other side could be having the same intent and want to interact. So
Chris, when you talk about that, did somebody tell you that there was something similar to imps in that location?
No, I've witnessed them.
Okay, because I've witnessed them too.
Yeah.
I've witnessed them. I've also.
We weren't told.
Yeah, I wasn't either. A lot of these things that I witnessed, I had to learn on my own. And then eventually when I ended up with contact with the Catholic Church and other people that have done research for hundreds of years, I started to realize some of the things that I've seen, they already had documented.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, well, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah. See,
a lot of fun.
I was told by Dave Constantine what I saw.
Yeah.
And then later on,
it was
a couple years later, Ron and Carl got to witness them. Gary, yeah, they all got to witness it.
And I wasn't.
She never said what she had seen. She just said, imps. We're like, oh, whatever.
I told you what I saw, but I didn't explain what they were.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And then we actually saw it.
Be lucky.
They're like little little animals or little like.
It's hard to
kept climbing up on top of each other.
It's hard to explain what they look like too, because you look at them and you're like, they have very distinct features. But be glad it was just that. My first experience that I've told everybody about millions of times and had been on TV, that when I realized that these dark evils exist, was what I wrote. I wrote a book and never published it called The Whisperers. And believe it or not, some of these things carry trails. And one of the things is millions and millions and millions of unidentifiable whispers before it shows up. And I thought I was crazy when I heard this before I got attacked.
Can you prove you're not crazy?
I don't think he can.
The psychiatrist that visited my home would tell you I'm not crazy. I saw him for 4 years and he kept saying, Chris, it's in your head. Take your medications. And then one day he wanted to prove it to me. So he came to my house.
That's fun.
And then he sat down in the basement. And then when I went to the construction worker, because my house was also my dad's house, he died there. I wanted to rebuild the basement and then I was going to sell the house. Went out to talk to the construction worker because construction had just began. He ran out of the home, looked like he pissed himself. Not kidding. And said, you don't need me. You need a priest. Don't ever fucking call me again.
Oh, well.
And would not return my calls. And after that point, I realized, Chris, maybe you're not crazy.
You're not.
And then other people started to come up to me in that house started to come up to me and say, Chris, this is why I never came back to your house. Just so you know, this is what I saw. Just so you know, this is what I experienced. And I'm like, okay, well, these people were telling me this without me telling them my experience. So something really happened.
Right.
So, but sometimes I still question it. I mean, don't we all? If we see
Always.
something.
I do.
And if we're not human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also try to reason it as well.
Oh, yeah. I
But
spent my
that's
whole
where we
life
get
trying-
stuck in our own rabbit hole, though, because
Yes, we
if
do.
we're not going to accept what we saw, then we're the only quasi-reliable witness we have. And equipment doesn't always pick everything up.
And with UFOs, that
That's
rabbit hole
true.
can get real
Yes.
deep.
Yeah, it does. So, it's just, I mean, I'm an experiencer. So that's not something that, I'm not aware of any being taken away or anything of that nature. That's just not something that I have any recollection of. But I have had lost time, and I have had things that I don't think were spirits that were around me, and that was disconcerting.
I have witnessed what I believe are demons. I have witnessed what I believe are
Yeah.
angels. I'm very avid about it. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you where they come from or what they are. I can't tell you the differences between the two because one of them is the closest thing to a old Japanese fighter pilot. Imagine the World War I's Japanese fighter pilots, where they would come out and the American would come out and they're always punting each other because they know they got to take shots and one's going to go down eventually anyway.
Yeah.
I have a demon that I do that with every time he shows up. And people have witnessed it. They've witnessed it follow me on spirit boxes, manipulate electronics, attack them to the point to where they were scared to death because he's told them secrets that nobody knows about and scared them. Classic demon moves. He can't do it to me. And if you listen to him while he's talking to me on these boxes and so forth, he'll tell you, we've gone round and round before. We're going to go round and round again. I can't harm you, but I damn sure can poke at you. And
That's always a good thing, Chris, to be a challenge for a demon.
I don't like it, but
I'm sure I wouldn't.
But it's on my unfortunate, terrible gift. I won't get into that, but it makes you question these things when you start witnessing that, and people will think you're crazy unless they witness it with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do. It's just the way it is.
We have a question from Bill Schultz. He asks, can
Yeah, I had another one
spirits,
before.
Carl, can spirits ever attach themselves to objects, or is that baloney? Or Bologna, if we want to go with that, but baloney.
Energy can attach itself to objects.
Yeah.
I have some that I packed up.
Did they pack themselves already?
The first week I packed her up, she got mad and things went flying around because I didn't pack her up properly. I have 3 pieces of wood that were hand carved from Hawaii that I have been told are cursed.
You went and saw the Brady Bunch, didn't you?
See, and I didn't believe it.
The
So
tiki.
when they told me that, they're 3 tikis, little tiki dolls. They're 3 tiki dolls, hand carved from driftwood in Hawaii. And the lady contacted me and said they're extremely cursed and haunted. I don't want them. And so she gave them to me and sent them over. I didn't believe it. Put them straight up. I will tell you right now, if I do not face that doll the right way with the other 2 dolls behind it, shit will go flying all over my room. I can't explain it. The only time I've ever ran into it. I got all kinds of objects that people have given me. I have one of the original crosses from the guy the priest that claimed to do the exorcism that The Exorcist is based off of. He gave me the cross and I put it on my wall. Never had a problem with it. I have a plate from Japan that was sent to me because there's supposed to be an oni attached to it. Never had a problem with it. Been on my wall for years. But these little tiki dolls are just wild.
Polynesian curses, they stick.
They do. What did they do?
Yeah.
Why did you pack them up? What were they doing?
I had things fly off my walls, and I had they will knock things around and fly off the walls. And I have this little wooden box, right, that I didn't put in. I just put in a cardboard box. I had to take them out, place them in the wooden box, wrap them individually, and then seal the box with a little padlock, and then everything was fine. Otherwise, I put it in the box. My box was back here. I moved it out of the other room. I had things flying around my room, and I had a kitchen knife thrown at my head and stuck in the wall over here. All because they get mad. They just do crazy stuff, and it only happens with those dolls. It's never happened in the home before that. So I tend to believe it's the dolls. I hate to say that because I don't technically believe in haunted objects.
Same thing happened. No one shows up.
That's a whole different problem. But Bill also asks.
We got the same thing that happens when our grandson shows up over here. Just crap flies everywhere. We didn't know it was.
But he says, but Chris, if energy does attach itself to an object, is it harmless always or never harmless?
Depends on the energy. Just like any place, depends on the energy. You know, if you had something really negative happen multiple times in a location, then negativity stays there. I like to give you I give everybody this example. I know Denise has heard it before, Kat has heard it before, but here's your example, right? Have you ever been at work in a marketing or a telemarketing room and one person has a bad day and spreads it to another person? The moment everybody has a bad day, computers start to fail, everybody wants to go home, the lights may flicker, you might even have your phone shut off.
Yeah.
And now reverse that. Have you ever been to a seminar where everybody's talking great? You're going to succeed. You're going to make money. God exists, whatever that is. And the energy is so great that you believe yourself and you go home and everything's awesome for the next week. The same thing happens with any location or any object. The more positive it is, the more positive energy will stay. The more negative it is, the more negative energy will stay. So it's one of those things that they not necessarily harmless or harmful. It's how you take that object and what you do with it. If that makes sense.
We do have one more question from Bill that he asked almost an hour ago. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that. He says, how much do we manifest ourselves with fear and whatnot? Remember we were talking about, what were you talking about? We were talking about people making a place haunted with their thoughts, you know, that kind of stuff. And so what are your thoughts on that?
98% is mass hallucination and mass projection.
What if it's not a mass experience?
A singularity experience depends on the individual and how much you know and what you believe. If you're told something is evil at a location and you go in believing something is evil at a location, I will guarantee 98% of the time or above, something evil will show up.
Well, you had mentioned, I'm just going to say you had mentioned Mansfield. And right after my mom passed away, I went to do a private investigation there for somebody's birthday. And my mom was in the car with me. She spoke. It was interesting. And when we got to Mansfield, we were downstairs. It was the night before they do their event. And I was just looking for a chair. We were down in the bottom of Solitaire. And so as I'm walking, somebody took a picture and there is a black mass, seriously black mass, with arms reaching for me. And in between me and this black mass is a khaki colored cloud that has purple on it. And my mom, that was my mom. My mom was a member of the Red Hat Society. She always wore khaki and she always wore purple. Kind of like you, Denise. And except blue jeans for you. But yeah, that was at Mansfield, which is someplace I do not ever anticipate having a negative experience. And yet there it was.
Well,
So-
Solitaire is a weird place anyway. It
was not something that I created for myself.
um,
It was interesting.
but it could still be that what I've learned from Ohio State Reformatory is kind of unique. Solitaire is unique because people talk about Solitaire being so evil. I have physically watched negativity produce in that area, and then the next night it not be there because people have produced it and created it. So
well,
there's
we were 5 little old ladies that were just out there having a good time. So
I would say there's a twofold going on though, because that Ohio State Reformatory projects everybody else's system. So if somebody 2 or 3 days ago expected something evil to be there, sometimes that negativity is still there because of what's happened. So if you run into that black mass in the solitaire, which other people have ran into, which is negativity, and then you've got the second fold, right? Your mother in life loved you and spent time with you. Therefore, in death,
Not
a
so
part
much,
of her
but
is
yeah.
still with you.
Yeah.
Well, even when she didn't,
It
part of
wasn't a
her
very healthy relationship.
my dad was the same way. My dad and me, until his death, we were not in a good place. Now, I was lucky enough to take care of him before he died, the year he
Me
died.
too, with her.
And it put us in a good place. So my dad is always with me. Here's the irony of that. A piece of him has remained because though physically we are alive the way we are right now, when we die, where does this go?
Yeah.
Well, it goes out into the universe and energy,
Into
and
the
they get
consciousness.
reabsorbed and sticks around and so forth. So if we keep a piece of it, the piece of it stays with us. Some of my worst moments, I still smell Pall Mall cigarettes, Bush Light, and know my dad is right behind me. And everybody
Mine
else.
is laundry.
See?
She was a laundry queen.
So you probably did experience the black mass because 2 or 3 days before that an investigation happened, or a week before that an investigation happened, and they brought that negativity into that area, and you brought your mother in there, so everything you witnessed was real.
Well, it was definitely real. And so bizarre. And Bill's apologizing for so many questions, but that's what
fine.
you do.
We love
Yeah,
questions.
that's
Bill.
good. We like questions.
It keeps us from being monotonous.
So, Kat, I'm going to ask you a question.
Ask away.
And I probably asked this before, but I've interviewed many of the people that you've interviewed because of you throughout the years. You have spent many years in UFOs. And of course, I know some things and you know some things. So let's get to the nitty gritty. How much do you believe the United States government created, and how much do you believe they didn't?
As far as the craft that are
As far
reported,
as far as UFOs and paranormal encounters revolving around UFO experiences.
I'd say that I don't think that our government has the capability to do some of the things that I've seen happen and that I've heard others share that were similar to what I've experienced. I do know that it's a great industry, and as long as we have something to make people afraid of, we're going to keep throwing money into it. So it's interesting. I do believe that what we experience, what we did initially in the 60s was it created signatures. I think it's very, very arrogant to assume that in the vastness of what's out there, that we're it, that we're the only.
That we're the only intelligent beings in the whole.
As intelligent as
I
we
can't
are,
believe
right?
that we're the only ones.
Yeah. And so I think that our government, through virtue of putting our address out there, I mean, for God's sakes, they put all of our information on a disc and sent it out to people. They have no idea who's out there. So give them our address and tell them that we're here and we look tasty too. So, it's just like, no, that was stupid. That was a stupid thing.
Probably build a little bit more on that too by putting scientific logic into it a little bit. Let's just take a look at human beings. We know that our creation is so unique that it's literally.
Do we though?
According to the science, it's literally 1 out of 385 billion, so to speak. I mean,
We're not the only Goldilocks.
But if that is the case, if we are unique and a certain specific set of circumstances have to happen, be it God in a petri dish or just science, whatever it is, if it's that unique, then wouldn't something else be curious if it stumbled across it? And
well, if there's something else out there to be curious about it, we're not unique.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
That is true.
Not really. They could have developed another way.
They could have developed another way, but they still had their own petri dish.
They did, and they could be.
And we are not, but we're not the only Goldilocks.
But scientific curiosity means that in their book, they're not looking at themselves; they're looking at us. And just like we look at the polar bear, and just like we look at the monkey, and so forth, if we find something we're curious on, then we're going to watch it and we're going to observe it and we're going to treat it like an animal and we're going to see what it does. Now,
Well, we're kind of the animal.
wouldn't it be logical that we are the animal?
Yeah.
And wouldn't
We're
it be
also
logical,
sometimes the prey.
that we could be observed and
Yep.
seen, and even tagged?
Who says we're not? I know a lot of people with implants.
I know a few too. The science
You
is
do.
amazing in that, and it makes sense. It makes sense that just like we tag a polar bear, why the hell wouldn't we be tagged?
Yeah.
Because to them we're animals.
And at some point, we're going to be able to get off planet, and that must scare the hell out of a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a question about shape-shifting. What do you think about that?
I don't believe it exists. I'm just going to be honest. I don't believe we have lizards in the center of an Earth. I do believe that we have something there. I do believe that the North Pole, from what I've interviewed and the people you've interviewed, there is something going on in the poles. I do believe that we do have a hole that people have been in before.
Mhm.
And I do believe that aliens have came up out of the ocean. I
Yes.
believe all of that.
I do that. What do you
Because
think about South America? No, Antarctica. My brain is not working, guys. I'm sorry. I've been traveling all
No,
day.
it's ironic that you asked about South America in a whole different area, very big
Oh.
political area.
Yeah.
America and South Africa, by the way, guys, are key elements that nobody knows about in the United States of America. We'll get into that in a political show somewhere along the line. What do I believe in Antarctica? I believe that there was something there. You had a very famous person that I interviewed at one point that looked into this, right? And
Yeah.
he told you the same thing he told me.
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic that that is the only base that houses every government, ships that are armed,
Yeah.
and calls it scientific research?
You know, that's what makes it fun, right? Is that, well, what was it? When everybody and their brother that had anything to do with any government body was there.
Mhm.
And they were coming in droves. And Lockheed Martin had all these people. You could apply online to go there. And they had all the Quonset huts that were geared for that weather. They had all the things going. You know, John Kerry was there on Obama's inauguration day. I mean, it was just like so random of a place for him to be because he was still a member of the cabinet. He should have been there.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's just all kinds of things that happen relevant to that. And nobody ever talks about that.
No.
Nobody. I haven't heard anybody but us in the last 3 years discuss this.
Because
And
the real things nobody ever talks about.
no, they don't. And it just, but that one drives me crazy because they don't always have that filtered out. You can go and look,
Mhm.
and there are things there. And, you know, it just gets really interesting.
You can go down a big rabbit hole when you're researching it too. I did for
Yes,
several years actually.
me too.
That and the Black Knight Project, you can go down a real rabbit
Oh,
hole.
yeah. That's
whole
fun,
other
though.
Yeah. But
That,
yeah, I mean, I believe there's something actually there. I honestly don't believe that it's what people make it out to be.
no. But I
But
do think that I think it is potentially extraterrestrial in nature.
I think that
And
it is extraterrestrial in nature, possibly a culture that is no longer in existence, but the remnants are still there and the dangers
yes.
are still there, which would scare the hell out of us. It
Well, it would
has
scare the
before.
hell out of us, but you know what? We're still here. So
Yeah.
whatever was going
Well,
to
and
be some nefarious thing
we all
didn't
know what
work.
the government does with things that scare them. Okay, the first thing is they cover it up immediately. The second thing is they try to figure out how they can control it.
Well, kind of like a cat with a litter box.
Yep.
So,
And that's the way it's always been. AI is a prime example of that. Artificial intelligence right now is the biggest threat in the whole world. And right now, the race to control artificial intelligence is worse than the race to control space.
kind of reminds you of nuclear power, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a very dangerous thing because we're all concentrating on how to utilize it, how to control it, and how to give it a mind of its own. And that's the dumbest fucking thing you can do to a computer.
Yeah.
Give it a mind of its own.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, HAL
Because-
is not always a good computer. Hello.
Well, when I look at it, like I was saying to Chris before the show about people being gullible and things like that,
Yeah.
with AI, you can manipulate everything.
Anything.
And you can make people believe
Whatever you want.
falsehood left and right, and it's going to look real. Elvis is alive and well, and he's building a new
He's
house.
back from Jupiter.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
dangerous.
he's having a great time.
It's dangerous for the same reason that a gentleman I'm trying to get on my show that was creating viruses, right?
Yeah.
Theoretical viruses. He wasn't actually in the office, but he was using computers to create theoretical viruses. He posed a situation or a question that he actually ended up in the controversy for because he used AI. He used artificial intelligence to try to figure out, first off, how to stop things like COVID-19. Can we come up with many solutions from artificial intelligence overnight to solve the problem of viruses? He found that out, so he thought, out of curiosity, what if we reverse this?
Yeah.
And that same AI, in less than a week, came up with hundreds of thousands of killer viruses. Now imagine that in the wrong hands.
It is
Oh,
in the
yeah.
wrong hands. It's
It's-
already out. That genie is
Okay.
out of the bottle.
So you can go back to pre-AI, okay? The reason that a lot of people don't believe a lot of things that they see is because of Photoshop.
Yep.
You can take Kamala's husband's head off of his body and replace it with Epstein's. You can, or Ron's, you could do that. It's not real, but people are going to believe it because they saw it with their own eyes.
Yep.
And it's the same with ghosts. You got all these little apps.
Oh, yeah.
This ghost camera. Going back to paranormal, people take these pictures and they send them to the news thinking that they're real. The news doesn't verify this. This happened in Arizona. And I took that picture and I found this same child in one of those ghost apps. And you know what? You've never heard from again. You've never seen that on TV. You haven't seen that again. It's disappeared from the internet.
People don't understand you can do that with a lot of the digital apps and even your
Yes.
spirit boxes and voice boxes right now. BlackBerry technology was an amazing technology for cycling through radio stations and doing the digital technology. But now when you add BlackBerry to AI, it can literally create a ghost
Yes.
and you'll never know it. The creator will know it, but he ain't going to tell you that. He or she ain't going to tell you that.
But
Thank you, Amy.
That's right. That is true.
And Amy, I hope you're having a great birthday.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Amy.
Yeah.
Hey,
August 18th
I'll
birthdays
tell you-
were easy for me to remember.
I'll tell you what, Amy, I just published a book called Paranormal, Is It Real? I haven't promoted it yet, but get with me on Facebook and I'll send you the first copy for your birthday.
You know what? Perfect. I will get you her information
Yes.
if she's okay with that.
Yep, if you're okay with it, I'll be glad
She
to send you the
lives.
first
She just
copy.
lives down the street from me.
Awesome.
Cool beans.
It's a unique book. I hope you guys read it. I don't expect it'll take off very well. It's going to piss off a lot of people, but that's what I do anyway, right?
You
Hey,
know what?
we have gifts, right? We use them.
We love pissing people off
It's fine.
with the truth.
With the truth. Yes.
So, and Kat, I hear you got a show starting here in about 15 minutes.
I do, and I've got to go finish uploading my graphics for it. But I am so glad to be here. Chris, thank you.
You know, you got to get me on your show somewhere along the line so
You
we
got
can
a
have
book
a nice
coming up.
in-depth
We're
talk.
going to do that in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
I'll be in touch with you. I miss talking to you. We used to
I
talk all
do.
the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I miss you too, Kat.
We have
I'm
some
glad to
great
talk to you.
debates. It's fun.
Well, enjoy your show. Everybody, if you're not watching me, watch Kat.
Yes, I'll come on right behind him. So thanks, guys. Love you, Denise, Ron.
Love you
See
too.
you, Kat.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Great conversation. Always love that stuff.
Yeah.
Always love that stuff. So,
Yeah, we make sure that we see her every chance we get since we're not that far from each other now.
oh, that's cool. That's
Her
awesome.
her condo's over in Gulf Shores, so
Oh, that's sweet.
And Amy just invited us to Gulf Shores next week. So needless to say, beach day.
Yeah, Kat and I go way back. I've learned a lot from her, believe it or not. I'd like to think she's learned a few things from me, but I've learned a lot, especially in the broadcast. We both kind of grew up in the broadcasting industry. And we both got screwed a couple of times from a few people on the same network.
Yeah, her and I by the same.
Yep.
So we understand.
Yeah. I tell you what, I did not know drama until I got into the paranormal. Especially, it started with podcasting. I didn't realize how much. Somebody offered me a podcast. I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. I just got off a radio. Yeah, I'll do podcasts. That's awesome. And then all the drama started within weeks, and the first one. And I was just like, what the hell just happened?
Believe me, I understand. Kat and I were on the same network when I first started. And it wasn't long before she went somewhere else. And I never went to that network. Then I went to Kat's network, and that she owned. And I got a little lazy. I got burnt out, and I didn't know how to say I was burnt out.
It happens.
And so now I'm here, and I'm glad that I'm here on the Bill of Rights Network. And
Carl's a good guy. He works with you. I when I got sick, if I would have owned a network, I would have fired me.
You know what though? I don't know. I had Carl on my podcast years ago, and that might have been the beginning of this.
Yeah.
The beginning of him getting involved in podcasts, being on them. So, but I do have a question for you before we get done. If an alien ship was to show up at your doorstep, would you get on?
Oh, hell yeah.
Run like hell?
I get on. I love Star Trek, guys. I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I've pissed off my wife because I tell her the same thing I tell everybody else. I love my wife and I love my kid, but if tomorrow aliens showed up and they said, hey, we're enrolling people to be captains of ships and go into the universe, fuck you, I'm out. If I could travel in the stars, even if it was a cargo ship and be a captain or see those stars and experience all that, I would do it tomorrow. I would not think twice. Now, it might be a mistake with the wrong alien ship. I could be food for the next. I could be the next dinner, but
it's too late. You wouldn't know. So it's
Gene Roddenberry did a show, and I wish I could remember it, but it was all about that, right? Aliens came down. They offered us everything. They had separate agendas. God, I wish I could remember that show, but it was a fascinating show because it was what he wanted to do with Star Trek, and it does pose that question. If aliens come tomorrow and offer us everything, what are humans really going to do? And the first thing we're going to do is a percentage of us are going to just question, look, nothing's for free.
That's true.
And
one of the things I tell my kids all the time, if anybody promise you the stars, the sun, and the moon all at the same time, remember how many times you've seen all three of those things in the sky at the same time.
And knowing that nothing is for free and the other concepts around it. I mean, imagine tomorrow if aliens showed up, even if it was V and they came to eat us. We all know V. We grew up with V. Visitors are our friends, right? Or if it was Gene Roddenberry's version or anybody's version, if aliens are coming and offering us all this stuff, it also means the first thing that happened is it affected everybody's belief in Christianity and religion. And people aren't going to accept that. They're going to want to fight. Honestly, I'm that guy that hopes that never happens. We're not ready. We're just not ready. Hell, we're fighting with ourselves right now. What makes us think we'll be okay with aliens?
It's just one more thing in the cog that's going to screw up our life.
But if I could travel in outer space, I would do it. If I had the education and somebody said, hey, look, tomorrow we're sending ships out to colonize all over the universe and we have that technology, I'd be the first one volunteering to be on one of those ships because it fascinates me. I mean, imagine being able to go not through our universe, but 3 universes over and just find out what's there. And granted, it could kill you, but what if it doesn't? What if you're the first person to ever step foot on that planet and witness that?
And bring it back.
Well, and bring it back.
Bring the information back.
Bring the information. Don't bring it back. It could kill you, but
But you know what I mean? That it's
yeah.
You and I are data people.
Mhm.
The data is what we're looking for. The data is
science.
facts. It doesn't include anything else. It's just the data.
Yeah.
We don't have to analyze the data. We just want the data.
Yeah, I want to witness it. I want to see it. It's the same thing with ghosts. The reason I believe in that something is there is because I've seen it. Can I tell you it's a ghost from our definition of a ghost? The answer is no. We don't even know what a ghost really is. We know what Wikipedia and the dictionary tells us. But is that really what a ghost is? I have no idea yet. Aliens are the same way. I have yet to see an alien, so what do I
know of?
That I know of. I have had an abduction experience. I don't know whether I was abducted or not. I lost time. I saw the light. I came back an hour later. My family was looking for me and said we were gone for an hour. Hours, not an hour, hours. We were
Where's
sitting
that
out
at?
here in Ohio, right down the road, actually, about 5 miles from my old house.
Is it near Defiance?
It was in Morrow County, so we have weird things happen in Ohio anyway, and UFOs are like second nature here. But I saw a light. I saw it come down from the sky. I looked at my buddy. We were both sitting on a bug at the time, believe it or not, that my mom owned on the hood. And I said, "Hey, did you see that?" He said, "Yeah, it's probably a helicopter." But then it started getting closer, and you could just see the bright light shining down on the field. Couldn't see what was above, right? And it got right above us, and that's all I remember except for going blind. And then I looked at him afterwards, and he was still sitting on the car with me. And I said, "Man, did you just see that?" And he said, "Yeah, I did. That was the weirdest damn thing in the world." Then we got up and we went inside. To us, this was maybe 5 or 10 minutes, right? Of the light coming down and coming towards us. My family and his family were sitting inside freaking out because they were looking for us for hours at 12 o'clock midnight. Here we are at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. We disappeared at 12. They didn't see us. We don't remember ever leaving. They said we weren't on the car.
Well, I think we need to start looking more closely at all the helicopters around here, because we've got multiple naval air stations, outlying naval air stations here.
So what do you remember up there? Anything?
I don't remember anything. I never had an experience after that. Now, I dug into this when I started working with the military. I will tell you that an experiment in Kentucky with lights and sound was conducted. You can find this if you dig deep enough. I can't give you the name, but they learned that through lights and broadcasting specific sounds, they can physically cause the mind to shut down and lose time. Isn't that ironic? So, did I really get abducted by aliens, or was that an experiment through my own government? I don't know. All I know is I found that project.
Well, and the thing is will you ever know?
No.
So, have you thought about being hypnotized for that subject?
I have thought about it, but hypnosis is a very dangerous thing for me.
Oh, I know. It's dangerous for everybody, whether they believe it or not.
Well, yeah, because of the other things that I know and some of the things that I have done, so to speak, in my lifetime. So I sway away from hypnosis and certain techniques that are medical techniques because very dangerous for me.
Well, thank you so much for having us on. We've been on here almost 2 hours at this point.
We have, yep. And I close at 8 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. Next week is going to be a partially recorded show. Anybody is welcome to join and tap in. We are going to cover a political situation this time, but I hope you enjoy my humor in between because the political situation is covering Kamala's announcement for her agenda on economics and all the false bullshit that she put in between it. So we're going to play that, and we're going to tell you the truth. And I'm not going to be nice about it. So I hope
Look forward to
you
hearing about it.
I hope you guys tune in. It's going to be a little funny because I'm adding a couple of things to it in the process. And I'm also adding the truth about the RNC and the things that she lied about, because I want you people to understand that this is a very serious race this time around, and you have to vote right, because if you don't, the United States is going to fall, ladies and gentlemen, and we're not going to be able to have these conversations anymore. It is that serious.
Yeah, it'll be over.
It will be, unfortunately. And there are people in the government that know that. There are ex-military that know that. My commander knows that. He's already prepped the whole area for people to be safe because he knows what's coming. Anybody who's been around for a while knows what's coming if Kamala Harris gets into office, and it's not pretty, guys. It's just not. So vote right this time around. Don't vote just because you hate Donald Trump. And we'll talk about my book a little bit later. You've been listening to No BS. No BS is a no BS show, as you're noticing. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. So join me next time. Don't just come into the comments. Come into the show. I want to see 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people, whether it's political, whether it's paranormal, whether it's about bullying, whether it's about social media, whatever it's about. Come on, tell us about it. Give us your opinion, whether you agree with us or not. That's what it is. We all learn together. Outside of that, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget Denise and Ron's show and everybody else's show here on the Bill of Rights Network. When's your show, Denise?
The Paranormal Pride is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central, every Monday night. That's not a holiday. And my guests tomorrow night are Maggie and Thomas from the Missouri State Pen. And then on Tuesday night, you can join me, Ron, and Carl on the Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal. And I do have a guest, but I forgot who they are. So I work one day at a time. Okay. I just keep one day at a time going. So join us then, 5 p.m. Central. So, and then like you said, all these other shows, there are so many on the network. We're bound to have one that will interest you.
Absolutely. 2 of them air at the same time I do right now. So, in fact, I think Angelina is still on her show right now with a guest. So, make sure you tune into her. If you don't listen to me, listen to her. I'm a political guy, so not everything's going to be paranormal with me. You might like paranormal. If you like paranormal, tune into Kat or tune into her.
But let me tell them about Kat's shows. So Kat's show, Fate Magazine Radio, is on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Central. And Fate Magazine's been around since 1949, and she does an excellent job. And it's amazing different topics all the time. And then on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Central, Kat has Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. She's been doing that show for over 10 years. So make sure you guys check those out. I guarantee you're going to find something that interests you somewhere along the lines of the paranormal or politics. So there you go.
Or survival, because I'm going to be doing a second show before next year, all about survival. So you can learn all about that, which is awesome. And you can buy my bug out bags. All right, righteous guys, we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy your night. Get yourself some dinner. And remember, not everything you see is real. So dig in and chill out. We'll talk to you later.